Welcome to the Champ de Mars Arena, nestled in the heart of the 7th arrondissement of France's capital city. It is Paris 2024 on the final day of competition for the wheelchair rugby. A bronze medal is about to be awarded to either Australia or Great Britain, who fell at the semi-final stage. Australia and Great Britain both great history in the competition. In fact, the last two nations to win gold at the Paralympics, and Kristen Hempfling and Kevin Bowie of Germany and Canada respectively will oversee proceedings for a hotly anticipated medal match. Well, this is how the draw has come to pass. Japan and United States of America proving too strong for Australia and Great Britain. Great Britain, the reigning Paralympic champions from Tokyo. Australia, the nation who claimed the two previously at London and Rio. Two sides oozing with class and oozing with determination to end their Paris jaunts with medals round their necks. Here come Australia, led by captain Chris Bond.
Number 15, Brayden, FOXLEY Kieran. And number 21, Josh Nicholson.
The Steelers, as Australia's wheelchair rugby side are known, have some legendary names in amongst them, none more so than Ryley BATT at his 6th Paralympics, 20 years since he debuted age 15 at Athens. This will be his last, and Brad DUBBERLEY is their coach to see them through to what they hope will be a medal. It's been a mixed bag, and they've already faced Great Britain and come second. Gav Walker, who leads out Great Britain, will hope that recent history can repeat itself and Great Britain can console themselves with bronze, having missed out on the opportunity to defend their gold in the final.
Number 8, Nick Cummins. Number 9, Ollie Mannion. Number 10, Tyler Walker. Number 11, Kieran Flynn. Number 12, Jamie Stett. Number 13, Aaron Phipps. And number 14, Daniel KELLETT.
Great Britain are out and they won't be retaining their gold medal, but a bronze beckons for them should they overcome Australia as they did in the group stage. Aaron Phipps and Stu Robinson are their high pointers. They'll be scoring the tries, and Paul Shaw will be looking to lead Britain to just their 2nd ever Paralympic medal, backing up that gold in Tokyo. It all went a little bit wrong against the USA in the semi-final yesterday, having sailed through the group unblemished.
maintenant, si vous le pouvez, merci de rester debout pour l'hymne national de la Grande-Bretagne.
Please remain standing for the national anthem of Great Britain.
Redemption beckons with bronze for either Australia or Great Britain at the wheelchair rugby at Paris 2024. My name is Joe Burns, and I'm delighted to be joined alongside for this medal match by Drew Lilly.
It's going to be a huge match, and hopefully not a case of after the Lord Mayor's show who is going to get over the disappointment of losing in the semi-finals, the better of the two. Great Britain just had a bit of a shocker. They really didn't turn up against the United States. Australia had it in their hands against Japan. They were 15 seconds away from making it to the final, so they're going to be the more disappointed of the two because they were that close. As Brad DUBBERLEY managed to turn things around mentally for them. They're starting with their high-low lineup. Great Britain doing exactly the same. So Great Britain, Stu Robinson and Aaron Phipps, along with Jack Smith and Johnny Coggan. 3-5-3-5, 0.5. There's Tez, Paul Shaw, the coach, MBE, the winning coach from 3 years ago. And then Australia also starting with their 3-5-3-5, 0.5. Chris Bond and Riley BATT, the high pointers, and their personal low pointers, you could almost call them Beau, Vernon and James McQUILLAN.
Final tactical instructions and rousing of the passions. Not that there will be much required. These are two of the dominant nations in the world, and as you touched upon, it's going to be a case of psychologically putting the semi-finals behind them and rallying for what is ultimately a match that will end in a medal.
Yeah, GB just really didn't turn up on the day, and they found themselves 6 adrift very early on. They burnt a lot of timeouts, made bad decisions. They just had a bad day. They'll be hoping to turn it around here. Clean slate.
The bronze medal match of Paris 2024 in the wheelchair rugby is underway between GB and Australia in green and gold, and scoring first.
Yeah, the match starts with a tip-off, and then after that, possession alternates at the start of the second, third and fourth periods. So it should well be that Great Britain get the inbound at the start of the second period.
GB respond. Two sides playing identical strategies as touched upon in the build-up. The Phipps and Robinson, both 3.5 classification players. The classification denotes the level of functionality in a player based on their impairments. The higher the number, the higher the functionality, 3.5 being the most functional. And one of those is Riley BATT, who's partnered by Chris Bond. So we've got 4 very mobile, very try-thirsty players out there across the two sides. Now, Jack Smith isn't all that accustomed to scoring, but he has been in the tries in Paris. As a 0.5 classification player, he's usually doing the nitty-gritty, defending, snarling up chairs, but he's getting in for an early score again.
Depends how the opposition defend. So when teams are trying to defend Robinson and Phipps, maybe their own high pointers come up there and try to block them from receiving the inbound. And one tactic that Paul Shaw uses is to have either Smith or Coggan a long way free up at the end, and because even though they're low pointers, they are very good at corralling the ball, positioning their chair well to receive the ball, so they can be used as outlets.
Beau Vernon finds his captain, who's well marked by Phipps and Coggan. But that arrives to lend his support, just that weave of the chair. He is an absolute master of manoeuvring his way up to the try line, Ryley BATT.
Two sides with similar lineups at the moment and neutralising one another. It'll be interesting to see when substitutions are made and who comes on. And almost had the first turnover there. Coggan couldn't quite get hold of the inbound. There's a judge to have come off Chris Bond. So no turnover. Doesn't reset the shot clock, and it's also an awkward corner inbound, but Smith's got it to Phipps. Phipps gets it over the halfway line within the allotted 12 seconds. Sigh of relief.
Sigh of relief for GB. Interesting position psychologically both these sides find themselves in, as GB employ a key defence where they invite the Australians onto them. That GB, they've only ever won one medal in the sport, and that was gold. So to claim a bronze here is still historic for Great Britain. And while a lot of this Australian side were accustomed to winning goals, being the best in the world for a 6 to 8 year period, they finished 4th in Tokyo. And while they'll be gutted to not be facing off in the final, as the turnover comes from Australia into the grasp of Beau Vernon, this bronze medal is important to them. They didn't get one in Tokyo. They want to leave with a bit of metal.
Right, so a turnover cause there. Phipps loses the ball. Vernon manages to pick it up, and he then had to call a timeout immediately because he was very close to the halfway line. He was in the attacking half, and had he gone back over into his defending half, it would have been a backcourt violation. So he took a timeout, but a turnover has been caused, and Australia, because it was a dead ball, they've chosen to make a couple of substitutions. They've taken off Bond, and they're going with a more balanced lineup. So Bond and McQUILLAN have gone off, the high and the low pointers, and we've got two mid-pointers there, Andrew Edmondson and Ella SABLJAK. They're trying to box Edmondson in and push him towards the sideline, and he manages to get out. Great patience from Andrew Edmondson, and that's the break, as it were, for Australia. 2 points clear.
It was handy work from SABLJAK here. You just see her fly across the screen there as Johnny Coggan was coming along to lay an intervention on Ryley BATT. The Gold Coast girl doing a little bit of the subtle unseen work there to allow BATT to score.
So an early substitution from Australia. It's what they did against Japan. It's what worked so well for them. They kept changing lineups, so Japan didn't know who they were marking, who their assignment was. Reaching foul. I think it's Aaron Phipps who is going to have to go to the bin. There he goes. I think Ryley BATT milks that a little bit there.
Some ringcraft, I think they call that.
So yes, another substitution. So every time, this is what Brad Doodley did very well yesterday. Didn't quite work against Japan, but it was 15 seconds away from working. Immediate substitutions all the time. So Ella SABLJAK was on for a set play and has gone off, been replaced by Josh Nicholson, and Tez Shaw has tried to match that. He's brought on a more balanced lineup as well, with Cummins and Stead out there.
Well, interesting to see Stu Robinson taken off as well, because he only left the court for the first time in the entirety of the Paralympics in the latter stages against the USA in their semi-final defeat, and it came at a stage when him being replaced was almost an admission that the game was gone, actually, bringing on young Tyler Walker. So it's really rare to see Stu Robinson's chair off the court, and maybe that's a factor of Phipps being in the penalty box.
Exactly, it was Phipps being in the penalty box, so a coach's timeout has now been called by Paul Shaw there, so that will enable substitutions to be made again. So I think it was purely to defend that particular situation, and Robinson's going to come back out, so he's only going to have been off for 5 or 10 seconds, but I think we are going to see a lot of substitutions where each coach tries to keep the other one guessing all the way through. So we are back with the original lineups, the two 3-5, 3-5, 0.5, 0.5. Robinson and Phipps going up against Batt and Bond. Coggan and Smith, the low pointers, McQUILLAN and Vernon for Australia.
Vernon seeks out his captain, who links with Batt. And you see that McQUILLAN and Vernon looking to have an impact on Phipps's progress, and they do just about enough there for Ryley Batt. There's a shot of young Brayden FOXLEY CONOLLY, 20-year-old in his first major tournament, who's graduated from the under-23s to be at the big show.
They've got a big development squad, have Australia. FOXLEY CONOLLY's here in case one of the two big guns, Batt and Bond, went down injured. Also to learn from them, to learn from a big tournament, and he is going to be having to step up very soon and take on the Ryley Batt mantle.
Well, I love that ball manipulation there from Robinson, switching it to one hand and then arcing back and wrapping it round the corner into Phipps. Very dexterous stuff. Batt picks out Bonds. How many times have those guys done that?
Clever play from Bond there. He knew that Phipps was alongside of Phipps, incredibly fast. He's got a great push, and Bond decided to drop the shoulder, duck in towards the left. Knew that he wouldn't win a direct wheel race between the two of them. Ball almost comes clear again. Brad DUBBERLEY applauding that. It wasn't a turnover, but it's sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of the likes of Phipps. He's already committed a turnover.
Similar shades to the feeling around the semi-final with GB at the moment. They're really having to graft in attack, and it means that a lot of their focus, a lot of their energy is sapped in trying to score. That is ridiculous. The no-look on the spin over the head ball, right into the grip of his captain. Few tricks being pulled out of the bag in Ryley Batt's Paralympic swan song.
They've played together around 240 times over the past 15 years or so, so they do know, they pretty much know where the other one's going to be at all times.
Yeah, that's not in a training manual anywhere, though, is it?
It's on the highlight reels, that one.
Yeah, as I was saying, though, in terms of the amount of work for GB to score, it means that they don't focus as much on the defence. And it's sort of a compounding factor.
Now, there we had Smith as the outlet, but Bond was wise to it. Smith hasn't really got the function to pass it, so he manages to hand it off to Phipps, which is exactly what he should do. That was the right move there. Time running out, 10 seconds on the shot clock.
Robinson finds a way through down the right flank. Coggan had worked hard to snare some wheels. And off goes Bond. He was putting an energetic shift in this opening period that's just slipped past the 2 minutes remaining mark. So it is time for a bit of time jousting. The teams will look to manipulate the clock for the next couple of minutes so that they might be the last team to score at the end of the period.
Australia put up 1:40 as the time that they wanted to score, and that's exactly what they've done. Signs were going up saying key defense for Team GB.
So keep your eyes peeled on the benches behind. You'll see various signs and symbols being put up, and GB Adventure, the instruction is to try and score on 105, which is a bit of a regulation marker. Stu Robinson doesn't score, but Ryley BATT departs the court prematurely, so 110, and the try is not awarded. It's going to be an inbound from the side because it wasn't a foregone conclusion that it was going to be a score. So Australia, as you all see, Ryley BATT is going to go off to the penalty box. He's down there, bottom of the screen. So GB have 3 to play against. They've also got 40 seconds of the possession clock now, so they might change the time that they're targeting, potentially 55 seconds, I'd say. And that should, in theory, leave a minimum of 15 seconds for them to score if Australia do so in 40. 50.2.
11:10, and a coach's timeout is called by Brad DUBBERLEY, and that gets Ryley BATT out of the sin bin. He was coming out of the sin bin anyway, but one of the Team GB players would have been sitting in front of that sin bin to oblige Ryley BATT to put up his hand and say, I will take the inbound. And you don't want a high pointer inbounding, because by definition they are off the court, and they could, so if Ryley BATT is off the court, he's only got 5 points, 4.5 points to aim at, 3.5 in Chris Bond and then 0.5 in Vernon and McQUILLAN. So Vernon with the inbound, and then Bond to BATT.
Strong contact from FIPPS. Looking to throw their weight around a little bit more, GB. It was an element of the game that they came off second best yesterday against Australia. Ryley BATT has his pocket picked by Johnny Coggan and co. FIPPS wheels away because GB had possession, and there is only 22 seconds on the clock. They will try and use every single second before scoring to deny Australia the opportunity of a last period point. BATT, FIPPS, Bond and Robinson all engaged. Foul comes in to lead to a penalty try, 7 seconds remaining.
That was cleverly done by Australia because they knew that time was of the essence, so they conceded a penalty try. Can Bond get over with seconds to go? And the answer is not quite. So at the end of the first period, we're back to dead level.
Determined defence from FIPPS out there on the edge. It forced a wonder pass from BATT that did find Bond, but then Coggan arrived. Well, it was Robinson, I beg your pardon, but Coggan was locking up the other Australian man in the key. So as you say, we are at 11s here with 1 period played in the bronze medal match between Australia and Great Britain. A turnover apiece in that opening stanza of the bronze medal match, I beg your pardon. And, well, it's sort of demonstrated there in terms of the steals. 1 apiece for both sides, and the turnover there right at the end there against Australia. So their steal from previously being negated, and 11 all.
I'd say it's advantage Team GB at the moment. They have got the next contested possession, so they will have the inbound at the start of the second quarter. And as things stand, they will also have the inbound at the start of the fourth quarter, so that's 2-1 to them. They've also got all 4 of their floor timeouts as opposed to 3. So these little things, I think the most important thing, though, is that Australia made all the running. They were ahead for the entire first quarter, and yet came away more or less empty-handed. So GB picked their pocket there.
Well, it's shades of the semi-final, though, again, against the United States of America, where GB headed into the first period break, trailing by just the one try. It was 12-11 to the United States before an early second period implosion from GB left them chasing and far too far to go.
That implosion happened when they decided to go for a more balanced lineup, and their mid-pointers ended up burning 3 timeouts on one play and didn't even get a point out of it, and that really took the wind out of their sails. So that was the mental problem for Team GB to get over. Australia's mental problem seems to be time management, the last minute of quarters, the last minute of a match. It bit them on the backside in the semi-final when they were 15 seconds away from making the final, and it's come back to haunt them again at the end of the first quarter. Both teams sticking with the high-low lineups as we go into the second quarter.
Second period of the bronze medal match at Paris 2024 in the wheelchair rugby is up and away with a fine inbound from GB's Jack Smith, who finds Stu Robinson, and his try hands GB the lead.
Their first lead of the contest, and GB there being told to get back in the key defense, being told by Adam SCATURRO, former American legend who is now on the bench for Team GB, and at some point you would think he's going to step up and take on the head coaching reins. He seems to be taking on a lot of the responsibility here already.
GB hassling and harrying the Aussies, including Ryley BATT. There's no way through for him at the moment, and time is running out. COGGAN arriving, and it was almost perfect timing. And with just seconds remaining, BATT makes it home. High press from Australia. FIPPS mobile enough to escape the attentions. Bond arrives and he has a little wiggle. Sends BATT the wrong way. And it's a nice score for FIPPS.
It was FIPPS and Smith doing the work there. Robinson was tied up, but having a low pointer, getting in there and setting a pick and a block, that meant that FIPPS had a path through. Very cleverly done there.
Well, GB are doing an excellent job of making life very difficult for Ryley BATT. Smith, the next to get into his path. He could find a route round the edge. And there's been a timeout called, I think, there by Australia. Testament to the pressure that GB have put on there. It's been a really good start to the second period for them.
That's 2 floor timeouts used by Australia. Ryley BATT taking that one there, deciding that there was no way that he was going to be able to score. Clever play from Johnny COGGAN. He got out of there. He made sure he wasn't pushed into the key. You can't have 4 defenders in the key, in the painted area. And it can be easy for a high pointer to bash an opposition low pointer into the key and make it 4 in the key. So he cleverly made sure he stayed out of it. Now, a corner inbound from Australia, never easy. A give and go between Bond and Vernon. And taking the timeout pays off.
GB looking to strike fast. And that will do the confidence the world of good as well. And it's really firmly ball back in the Australians' court, because they're now being asked to respond, and it looks like Chris Bond is going to do so all alone.
He's started his push a little bit earlier than Aaron Phipps and managed to outpace him. This is the last match of the tournament for both of these teams, and you can imagine the 4 high pointers who are out there have said to their respective coaches, this is it, we want to leave it all out there. Don't you dare take us off. We don't want to be substituted.
Robinson finds a path through. Trading tries right now, 10 for Stu Robinson, who careers in to Ryley BATT. He's going to look for some help. Oh, almost dislodged by the arm of Robinson. How much time is there to get it across the halfway line? Plenty. And Beau Vernon, how smart of him to get in position, knowing what was unfolding in the backcourt.
You need to position your chair perfectly for that. He's a 0.5 pointer, the lowest classification you can have. He's not flexible enough to wheel around, so it had to be a perfect pass, and his chair position had to be perfect, and it was.
Phipps. Bit of braking from Chris Bond out there.
Para-braking.
Para-braking from Bondy.
He's obviously been watching Rachel Gunn, the now legendary Australian breaker.
Phipps looks down one avenue, doesn't like what he sees, and he finds open roads all the way to the try line.
Open road because Chris Bond was tied up by Jack Smith. So 0.5 points was tying up 3.5 points. That's how the maths works. If you can have a low pointer tying up a high pointer, or even in any kind of disparity there, if you can get the maths to work in your favor, then that's the way you're going to score tries.
Key defense being employed here from GB, who ask Australia to break them down again. They've had a lot of success with this, but this time Ryley BATT simply bullies his way through the challenges. Not a huge amount of grace and subtlety to that, but certainly effective.
Johnny Coggan there getting involved and doing just enough to slow Chris Bond down and enable the pass to be made between GB's 2 high pointers.
It's a lot more confrontational from GB than it was against the United States in the semi-final. And also, their shots are sticking as well. Both Robinson and Phipps found themselves on their back after collisions with SCATURRO Adam, who was quite brilliant for the USA in that semi-final. But they seem to be getting better, the better of the collisions out here so far against Australia.
Well, GB are a very good team. GB are in the top 4 in the world. They're defending champions. They're not going to be able to defend their title here, obviously. They're a very good team who had a very bad day at the office just for the space of 1 quarter in the semi-finals.
So they just need a quarter of a quarter.
Indeed, indeed. It was barely half a quarter. It was just a 2 or 3 minute period where it all went wrong for them. So they just need to get that out of their minds and try to reduce the errors, and then that's what happens when you're playing Australia.
The pass was exquisite. It travelled through a forest of arms, and I think that acted as sufficient distraction for Phipps to not be able to take the ball. They've got a real break there, though, because it's ricocheted off an Aussie chair, so they haven't lost the possession. That could have been terminal.
It looked to me as if it had come off Phipps's chair, but it obviously rolled down Vernon's. So a corner inbound with 3 seconds to go. It doesn't reset the shot clock. Very cleverly get it into the hands of Stu Robinson. He called a timeout, and so they've now got 15 seconds in which to score as soon as Robinson picks up the ball from now.
They've got a few to play with as well. That's their first of the match that they've used as players on court, and Stu Robinson isn't going to hang around. He makes absolutely sure and goes route one.
That's perfection. That is what you do. You've got 3 seconds to go. Take a timeout, reset the shot clock, reset yourselves, score, job done. Textbook stuff.
Well, he makes it look easy there, Robinson. But conversely, if you look at Ryley BATT, the difficulties that he's having at the other end, trying to penetrate that key defence from GB. It's a funny old game. When it's going for you, it's going for you. But it really is a momentum and confidence-based sport. I say this, BATT's going to go the length, isn't he? Well, as good as. Gets the assist to his captain.
The advantage of having 2 high pointers out there, which is what we've got in both teams, is that you've always got one who can throw the ball the length of the court and another who can corral any pass, race onto the end of it with the acceleration, the push that you need. 3 in the key for the Aussies and McQUILLAN outside.
Core slam shut. Jack Smith free, reverses back across the line.
He's a great outlet as a 0.5 pointer. They do that so well, that key attack, Team GB, when one of the low pointers, usually Jack Smith, finds a little bit of space in the key. A reaching foul. And Phipps is sent off to the bin.
So Phipps has to spend 60 seconds there or until the opposition score. More often than not, it'll be when the opposition score, and because of the ball being dead, it means that Australia can make a few changes. So we've got, who have we got? We've got Andrew Edmondson on the ball there, wearing 14, third Paralympics for him. A 2 classification player, and he's also joined by Josh Nicholson as well.
So going for a more balanced lineup, and that's what Australia like to do. They've been doing it the last couple of matches. Quick. Well, how about that? A turnover, a steal when you're 3 on 4. That defies belief, that really does.
Goodness me, and the temerity to sell a dummy. Coggan claims it. Smith alongside. He needs some help from Stu Robinson, but Ryley BATT was waiting. He was waiting, ready to pounce. It was really smart stuff, and the Aussies have the inbound.
The Aussies have the inbound. Robinson lost it, and BATT, rather than trying to pick it up and risking touching it and it going out of play, just got in the way of Robinson's chair. So that's another 40 seconds if Australia can hold on to it. Reminder that Phipps is still in the bin. Well, everybody catch your breath, and that's what Ryley BATT is letting us do. They're going to set a pick on Phipps coming out of the bin. BATT and Edmondson know one another very well from New South Wales, so Coggan hadn't got the strength to pass it. And there we go. Well, I think that says it better than we could do.
Crazy little passage that. No one cherishing the ball. GB managed to navigate the inbound with their high pointer, the one launching it, and he's the one returning as well. So Phipps gets the try.
Now, we're into the last 90 seconds, so score on 52 is the board being held up by assistant coach Sam Allen for Australia.
Now, someone's lost the pressure in their tyres. You can hear that coming through our Atmos mics, and it's Phipps. He gestures to his shoulders to say, I got a flat, sir. Can we get a mechanic on here?
So that resets the shot clock for Australia. So that changes the timestamps. It's 52. Well, it's not going to change the timestamp. They're still going to want to score on 52. It just makes it slightly easier to do so.
Ryley BATT The last time we'll get to see the great man on a Paralympic court. By his own admission, he is held together by tape at the moment. Edmondson is New South Wales fellow gladiator.
He had to make sure he wasn't pushed back over the halfway line. That would have been an over and back violation. BATT trying to get past two high pointers and manages to do it, and that's perfection in terms of scoring and the timestamp. It's 21 apiece. Whoever gets the final score here will feel the happier of the two.
COGGAN all alone and has BATT arriving. Seismic shot from BATT on COGGAN.
Tried to push him over the sideline, but COGGAN was having none of it. That was amazing. 0.5 points, managed to withstand the fury of Ryley BATT there. Take a bow there, Johnny COGGAN.
Robinson to Phipps. They're getting counted down by the bench, by GB, and now they're going to take their time out so that they are in command of this clock at the end of this second period. A chance to head into the break leading by 1. Wow. That was impressive from COGGAN.
Again, it's chair positioning. What we said earlier about Beau Vernon, you have to have your chair in the right position, the right angle. And there he had his chair at the right angle to make sure that he wasn't pushed over the sideline. 14 seconds in which to score and take the lead into the second half.
Beau Vernon gets battered about in there in the key. 4 in the key, though, from Australia.
Cleverly done, because that way it's a penalty try and they get the ball back, so they've got 5.2 seconds from now in which to try to score. Can Vernon pick it up? Beau Vernon take a bow. Chair position.
An incredible climax to the first half, and it is just the boost that BATT and the boys need. The Steelers do just that. They steal a try right at the death of the first half. Beau Vernon, the man to go good. And at half-time, there is not a try between them in the bronze medal match. Australia 22, Great Britain 22.
22 apiece. They've got 2 timeouts left each, 1 coach's timeout left. They'll have 1 contested possession each. There is nothing to choose between these two.
Who can claim this bronze medal? Well, they're packed in here, ready to find out. Australia gold medalists at London and Rio.
I'm going to teach you some French now. How do you say can in French?
Peu.
Pouvoir. Le French can.
Well, it feels a shame to be rolling in these highlights when all the action is on court at the moment, but we must not get distracted from the reason that we are truly here. This is to settle a bronze medal at Paris 2024. In the wheelchair rugby, a sport that is excited and enthralled in equal measure across the opening 5 days of this Paralympic Games, and it's been nip and tuck between 2 high-low strategies. Chris Bond, Aaron Phipps, Ryley BATT and Stu Robinson all heavily among the tries. A bit of para breaking from the Aussie captain Bond. But neither side loosening their grip on this medal just yet.
It's been an incredible bronze medal match. There's nothing to choose between them. The statistics, if you add them all up, take away the steals from the turnovers, it all balances out. One team is going to be over the moon in about half an hour's time, the other one absolutely distraught. Which one it's going to be, we'll find out in 5 minutes' time.
plus fort. Ok, on les a retrouvés, ils ont répété la choré, c'est pas mal les gars.
The conclusion of the next 2 periods of this bronze medal match. Go Aussie is the call from that finger, but it is GB raising their arm saying we want this bronze just as bad. There is not a try between them. Australia 22, GB 22.
Australia having made some changes here, so they're going with a more midpoint lineup. Andrew Edmondson and Ella SABLJAK have come back on, so they can play 3-5, 2-5, 2, 0.5. That adds up to 8.5, but having Ella on the court means that they can have an extra 0.5.
Pretty easy score there for Ryley BATT, who played a key role in setting up Beau Vernon right at the death of that first half. It looks for all money that GB would be heading in with a 1-try advantage, but Aussie coast to coast fittingly for the continent and stealing a try right on the buzzer. Spilts. Who did it come off?
It's going to be an Australian ball. It was flipped out, I presume by Aaron Phipps.
Oh, I tell you what, he's got lucky there. Let's have a look at where this call goes, because that definitely came off that, didn't it? And Smith is making his way to the sideline for the inbound. Is he? No, it's not.
It's definitely an Australian ball, and they called a timeout because Ryley BATT had been hemmed in by Robinson and I think Phipps, so Australia have had to call the timeout to get out of it. They've used the coach's timeout to do that, so that is a clever way of doing it. No floor timeouts used, just means there are no more coaching timeouts to be used by Brad Duberley if he wants to make substitutions. He can make substitutions when there are other timeouts, when the ball goes dead, but it was a well-used timeout there. And yes, a little bit of luck for Australia there, but dead level.
Mini win though for GB there in forcing Australia to have to be creative with their timeouts. Doesn't come as a cost to GB, but certainly whittles away the options for Australia as we get to the latter stages of the match. And you've already identified they've had some difficulty in coordinating themselves in the last 60 seconds or so of the periods, including fatefully against Japan in their semi-final. Edmondson is being consumed by GB defenders here.
He did incredibly well there, Andrew Edmondson. He had to bounce the ball and he had no room in which to do it, and he made some room, and then he ended up drawing a foul from that reacher, Aaron Phipps. That's the third time he's going to the bin. He went for the ball. Edmondson showed him the ball and then gave him some arm. And that enables Australia to make a change, and they've gone back to high-low, 3-5, 3-5, 0.5, 0.5. Bond and McQUILLAN come back on.
And they're also up against 3 players as well. So Ryley BATT spins on his wheels. Chris Bond goes and blocks off Aaron Phipps. Aaron Phipps nominates himself to take the inbound, and GB have reduced options and classification players out on the court. It's all one domino effect. It's why they call this chess with contact. And you see there, with the reduction in options for Aaron Phipps, he decides we're not going to risk it. I'm going to use a timeout, and therefore we can reset who will take the inbound.
Absolutely perfectly done there by Australia. They set a trap on Phipps coming out of the sin bin. He couldn't get out, so he had to elect to inbound. That means that 3.5 of your 8 points is off the court inbounding, and he's only got 4.5 to aim at. COGGAN and Smith, who are low pointers, and Robinson. So if Australia can tie up Robinson, Australia have obviously got 4 on the court compared with 3. They tied up Robinson and there were no options available for GB. They were forced into a timeout.
Jack Smith looks to cause issues with Ryley BATT, and he is shadowing him well. Robinson rides the hit, flips the ball out over the top for Phipps, who swung around on his shoulder. And GB a level. Watchful opening couple of minutes here.
Ever so slight fumble from Ryley BATT. He's obviously going to have the wheels to get past Smith, and also McQUILLAN did a little blocking job on FIPPS to make sure that FIPPS couldn't get through. It's easy to watch the high pointers who are out there, but it's always good to keep an eye on the low pointers, see what they're doing, what kind of defensive work they're doing. Maybe some mid pointers, the likes of CUMMINS and STEAD, will come on for GB, but it doesn't seem that Paul Shaw and Adam SCATURRO are trusting them after what happened in the semi-final. Bond tries to make a path. A reaching foul again. Guess who?
Yes.
No. It's been a penalty try. So,
penalty
yes.
try. So Australia back with this one try advantage. Phipps manages to skid his way home despite having Bond latched onto him. Oh, so little between these two sides. Could be in for Rager. Could be in for an entertaining fourth period.
Key defence has been working very well for Great Britain. They've made Australia work for every try. They'll be able to get through here because after a while the GB high pointers came forward. So we have a quick look at Emilie Miller, who could come on for Australia. She's a low pointer, 0.5, but since she's female, that gives you an extra 0.5, and that would enable Australia to play Jake Howe, a one-pointer, so a low pointer but with a bit more function. May see her a little bit later on.
Beau Vernon has an inbound here to get away. He's got all his crew in green to aim for, and he picks out his captain.
You've got 10 seconds in which to inbound. It doesn't start the clock, but the referees are counting out.
Well, that was a timely arrival from Ryley BATT because Stu Robinson had got in there and spoilt the ball, and had BATT not got there, I think Robinson would have managed to reel that ball in.
So BATT got in his way, doesn't reset the shot clock because Australia were in possession, and in the end it doesn't matter. But that was a good block from Ryley BATT, but GB will like that. They are forcing little half mini threats of turnovers. They're sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of the Aussies.
High press from the Aussies, but it doesn't work, and once Phipps gets free, no one catches him. Fastest in the game, Aaron Phipps. And GB a level again at 29 apiece.
They also locked up James McQUILLAN, so the two low pointers, Smith and Coggan, locked up James McQUILLAN while this was going on, and they forced him to say that he will take the inbound. And he's not quite as good an inbounder as Beau Vernon. Of course, as soon as I say that, he comes out with a great inbound. Well done, Quill. Forced to work once again, and that was a great pass between those two.
GB being asked to go from deep.
Great blocking by Johnny Coggan, took Chris Bond out of the equation. Bond comes back now. GB back off and then take a run at it.
That is a terrific ball. BATT read the intentions of Robinson, but he shows that he's not just brawn, there's a fair bit of brains there, and also the ability to pick a pass through a crowd of people.
And Australia do the same. Ryley BATT was hemmed in there in the corner and knew that as soon as Bond got free, almost wherever he threw it, it would get to his partner in crime. Still high-low on either side. 3-5, 3-5, 0.5, 0.5. As the fans here at the Champ de Mars start creating some even more atmosphere, as if we needed a little more. McQUILLAN comes out with the block. And Phipps was doing the blocking work there.
They've done an excellent job here. Really must doff our caps to the vibe that's been created. It's been a contribution from everyone.
There's a great bunted inbound there from... Well, that was a great bunted inbound from Vernon. That was a bit of a speculative pass, and BATT latched onto it and called the timeout in the absolute nick of time. You can see Kristin Hempfling doing the T signal, because it was probably a quarter of a second before he caught it. Ryley BATT called for a timeout.
I thought she was saying there's a big tune coming from the DJ to accompany the lights.
Here it comes on cue. So that's another timeout taken by Australia. One timeout left, and there are 11 minutes left of this match. There's going to be some speculative passes in the final quarter when they're out of timeouts.
Ryley BATT pirouettes out so impressively. From the challenge of Phipps, the crowd really appreciate it. Oz are back into the lead, and while we are trading tries and there's no break, as it were, in the scores, just having that little one-try advantage at all times is a mini psychological win. Doesn't last long as Stu Robinson coasts home, but it does put the pressure each time on GB that they can only level and then find themselves one behind. That is, of course, unless they do a bit of damage up here in Australia's court.
Well, if GB can level it at coming into the final break, they have the possession arrow.
They sure do. But they've also only got 3 up on both wheels on the court as we take a look at Stu Robinson here in action.
There's a stoppage in play because Jack Smith was down. I was trying to work out what the stoppage was for, but it's Jack Smith who's down. So this resets the shot clock for Australia in possession. Their bench has held up a little board saying 1:50. That's when they want Australia to score. Australia will be so keen to get the final score and go into the final quarter leading by 1, because Great Britain have the possession arrow. They will get the possession at the start of the final quarter. Penalty try given.
Hey, is the call? Whatever that means.
Bring your A game.
We're going to find out.
There's 2 minutes to go. Bring your A game.
Position A. That's what they want. Stu Robinson wraps around. Jack Smith is going to have to chase, but he doesn't have the wheels. The pass was too ambitious from the high pointer to the low pointer.
He had to do it with both hands because he was under real pressure. Robinson needed to put some backspin on it. Easy to say from here. So there's a turnover, and it was a dead ball, so it's enabled Australia to make some substitutions. Out come Edmondson and SABLJAK, so they're going for the 3-2-5-2.5 lineup. Beau Vernon staying out there, of course. Ryley BATT staying out there. And it's also a more balanced lineup for GB. Cummins and STEAD have come out there.
Beau Vernon needs to have his wits about him. The ball's heading his way, and STEAD will arrive to try and shunt him off court. Transfer to Edmondson. Pass the parcel amongst the Aussies there.
Doesn't have to bounce it because that counts as a pass, and either a pass or a bounce every 10 seconds. Australia with a 1-point advantage, looking to make it 2 and looking to manage the clock.
just about. Does Ryley Batt squeak across? Yes, he does. Jack Smith did his level best to slam the door, but it wasn't quick enough. There we go, 2-try lead, which is significant in terms of the context of this encounter.
SABLJAK doing great blocking work. The ball needs to go over the halfway line. Robinson's been locked up. Smith again, they keep firing the ball out to Smith. Well done, Jack Smith, for bunting that in and forcing Ryley Batt to make contact with it. It's not going to reset the shot clock, but that was an incredible play by Jack Smith. They're asking a lot of him, and he answered the question there. Awkward corner inbound, 25 seconds to go, but they are going to score. That's well done by GB. 48.7 seconds to go. You would say that Australia would like to manage the clock, use their final timeout, run down all 40 seconds, get another timeout. All they need to score is the main thing that Australia need to do.
Stu Robinson turns the ball over. He gets a limb to the ball in this Champ de Mars atmosphere, and he feeds Steads, and GB have command of the clock.
Now GB can use their timeout if they so desire. They're not going to have to. They just need to run down the clock.
They don't need to. They need to get this last score, but their possession clock, it matches that of the game clock. Robinson weaving. They don't want to leave Australia much time here because they bit back late on in the last period. 3.2 seconds. GB must keep Australia out here. They'll have the first possession of the next quarter as well. Batt sends the Hail Mary up. It won't come to anyone, and that is a fine finish to a taut and tightly contested period by GB. They negate the turnover from Australia. Stu Robinson with the key intervention. And we are level once again heading into a break. End of the third period of the wheelchair rugby bronze medal match. Australia 34, Great Britain 34.
Australia are suffering from last-minute syndrome. The last minute of every quarter, they seem to get incredibly nervous. They force a turnover, they get their noses in front, and then they seem to hand it back. They did it in the final quarter against Japan yesterday, and that's why they're not in the gold medal match. And they've just done it here again in the third quarter. You look at the stats, there's little to choose between them, more turnovers and more steals from GB. But it's really been time management. It's 34 apiece, and GB have the possession arrow going into the final quarter.
A lot of these highlights are feeling like you've seen this movie before, because it is the high-low strategy of both Australia and GB. The dominating proceedings of the link-up play between Phipps and Robinson being matched by Batt and Bond, and then you have the industry of Smith, of COGGAN, and McQuill and Vernon matching one another.
Again, GB are going to be the happier of the two teams. They were behind. Australia had a 2-point lead in their grasp, and then GB managed to pressurize them into a mistake in the final minute. GB then managed the clock perfectly, and they find themselves with the opening possession, and they will once again, as they did in the second period, they are going to be able to come out, take the lead, and lead the final quarter from the front. I'm surprised the British and the Australian fans are able to dance and enjoy themselves here. It's probably trying to get rid of nervous energy. There's plenty of green and golds there, too nervous to move.
Fourth and final period of the bronze medal match between Australia and Great Britain commences via the inbound of GB's Jack Smith. The sides are level, it's 34 apiece, 8 minutes to determine who will have bronze hanging from round their neck.
Both teams have gone back to their starting lineup, so they're going for the high-low, 3-5, 3-5, 0.5, 0.5. They're going to live and die by their high-low lineups.
Bond goes over the top, back gratefully receives, and it's a try piece in the opening exchanges.
Immediate pressure, so full court press from Australia.
Phipps has been forced back across the centre line there.
Is it an over and back or a timeout? It's an over and back. An immediate turnover. So Phipps had half of his chair over the line with the ball in his possession, was knocked slightly backwards by a hit by Bond, and that is a huge turnover. Advantage Australia. It's like a backcourt violation in basketball, and we're going to see it here. Great camera work there.
He knew the second he'd been hit, the wincing glance of Aaron Phipps, but there is still time for GB, plenty of time, and as you called it, last-minute-itis that Australia have been suffering from. They got an early turnover against Japan in their semi-final, and then were undone by themselves, really, in the final seconds. So lots more twists and turns, I beg your pardon, to come.
Now, a timeout's been called by Ryley BATT.
So that is the last of Australia's timeouts, both coach and player led. GB, conversely, have one player and one coach timeout remaining, so they've got a little bit more influence over the clock, and also a get out of jail free card. Ryley BATT wriggles his way around. McQUILLAN did some very precise work to leave just enough of an avenue for him to get round.
Phipps is blocked by Bond and McQUILLAN, so it's Robinson more or less on his own. The ball goes free. Bond shepherds it out, and it's another turnover.
Double turnover early in the period.
I'm confused as to why BATT took the timeout, but we've had another turnover since then. 4 that have been committed by GB as Aaron Phipps has a wheel replaced.
So Vernon will inbound for Australia. So a double turnover conceded by GB in the opening minute of this period. And that feels like a chasm given the margins that this game has been operating on. Ryley BATT finds his way round because Bond runs a nice little block. And as far as Australia are concerned, they need to keep it tight, they need to be error-free, and they need to continue to put the squeeze on GB because it's them who are chasing this now.
They've done everything right, and a 2-point lead in the context of this match, as you say, feels like a chasm. And of course, it immediately goes back to 1, and all it will take is a turnover if Aussie hands get a little bit nervous, and we'll be back level again. So every inbound from Beau Vernon is going to be a nervous one as Bondi does his Statue of Liberty impression.
As Ike Ukinobu-esque.
Yes, we'll be seeing him. Oh, that was a close pass in the final.
Oh, big smash, the timing perfect on the release. It was right on the margin there. Robinson arriving in double quick time, but Bond with the control to get the ball away to BATT. Intensity's ramped up a little bit in this last 30 seconds. Robinson weaves the shoulders. BATT hits the deck, and he shows that he's got the breaking ability. Suspended on court at the moment. It's a try to GB.
There he is. His shoulders have been hanging by a thread for at least a couple of years now, so he doesn't want to be in that position for too long. And the mechanic, Blair Thompson, came out sooner rather than later to flip him back up. Great blocking there by McQUILLAN. Nervous looks on the Aussies from the entourages in the crowd. Plenty of family out here cheering on the Steelers. Aussies in the key, McQUILLAN just out of it, making sure his chair well positioned so he doesn't get barged in.
Flipped across to Phipps, and that is a get out of jail for GB there.
It's get out of jail, but when you've got Jack Smith and Johnny Coggan, two of the best, in different ways, they're two of the best 0.5 players in the world. Coggan in terms of his blocking and picking, and Smith with the flexibility that he's got for someone with a spinal cord injury. Amazing.
Well, it slipped from Phipps's grip and it could have gone over the back line, so it could have been lost for GB there, but fortunately fell into the path of Smith, who was perfectly positioned. Phipps has consistently got a bit of... Here we go. Woo. The biggest sigh of relief in the arena from Aaron Phipps. He's having persistent problems with his chair. He's just had the mechanic on again to tend to his wheel. Wasn't a blown out tyre, it's the connection that's holding the wheel in place.
Well, there's also the fact that a brand new wheel can have some gunk on it, some of the sticky stuff, and if you can get some of that on your gloves, then that will help you to reel the ball in and catch it in the last 4 minutes, 50 seconds.
Supersonic from Phipps. He had Bond and Batt cinch upon him, but composed enough to release the ball into the grip of Robinson. Oh, the ball almost gets left behind and Coggan tries to smash. Call from Batt saying that his arm's been grabbed there. He's shaking his head and he's sounding off, and it's Batt at his bristling best in his final quarter of Paralympic wheelchair rugby ever.
If you look up the word feisty in the dictionary, there's the photo of Ryley Batt, and that's it. No other words required. Aaron Phipps having yet another change of wheel.
So it looks like GB are going to call a coach's timeout as well. I wonder, is there any concern around the chair of Phipps? These things are pretty indestructible, but on occasion they do get to a level where they can no longer function.
Well, we've got a minute to talk about it. It's obviously not everyday chairs. The players have chairs that they get about in, and then they have chairs for the court, so they're sports chairs. And then the wheels as well they cost four figures of any currency you wish to work it out in, be it British pounds or Australian dollars or euros, since we're here. Incredibly expensive, but it's all high-tech stuff. No substitutions. The teams are still going to live and die by their high-low lineups. Phipps is locked up to the right of your screen. McQUILLAN gets back there, block on Robinson. Phipps gets back there. Bond tries to push him out of play. Phipps gets round. Nothing wrong with the chair or the wheels there, and they halve the deficit once again.
The match finally poised. The ball in the hands of the Aussie captain, Chris Bond. Just a try between them, and really just a turnover or a steal between them as far as GB are concerned. Australia will know if they can perform one of those, though, that they could be home and hosed. 150 tries across Paris 2024 for the great Ryley Batt. He's going off with a bang. Is he going off with a bronze? That's the question. Robinson and Phipps are finding life easy in the try-scoring stakes for the time being, but they need that all-important turnover.
Adam SCATURRO, the assistant coach of GB, flashed up a key sign there, and you can see that three of them are indeed back in the key. Back comes Phipps to make it 4. I don't think the fans are really enjoying this. They are all far too nervous. We're getting down into the final half of the final quarter.
And once again, a GB High Point player wears a stunning smash from one of the Aussies, and he travels back into the backcourt. Turnover to Australia. Phipps has been monstered, now to Robinson. Could it be a terminal turnover for GB?
If Australia can get themselves 3 points clear, it's tough for the inbound because Bond had to do the inbound, and Beau Vernon, great position, great chair positioning, great outlet. Australia find themselves 3 points clear. Now I think they're going to start breathing a sigh of relief. It's a good cure for last-minute-itis being 3 points clear as opposed to just one.
Phipps to Robinson. They're going to have to press high here, aren't they, GB? They've got to force the issue.
They can't afford to sit back in the key because that will take time off the clock. They need to get Beau Vernon nervous, not that this man ever shows any nerves. That's got to get it over the halfway line before it gets down to 28 on the shot clock.
Oh, he does so by a whisker. Uses every last bit of the levers of Bond as well. Asks him to really get after it.
Ella SABLJAK can barely watch. Jake Howe alongside her.
Some of these Aussie athletes are 3 minutes away from a first ever Paralympic medal themselves. The likes of Miller, McQUILLAN, Vernon, FOXLEY, CONOLLY and Nicholson. They've never known what it feels like to be on the podium at a Paralympic Games, and bronze is looking like it could be theirs. That is, unless GB can turn things around. They've dug deep before, but this is as deep as they'll have to dig here in Paris. And just this procrastinating from Australia isn't going to help them either, because the time is eking away.
GB need to score quickly and get an immediate turnover. And if they do that, then nerves will set in. Last-minute-itis may be in the air for Australia again. But it's been a fantastic fourth quarter from Australia. They've done everything right. 2 over and backs they've caused. The gap gets down to 2. It's going to be a nervous inbound. Johnny COGGAN now needs a change. I think it's just on his strapping. Two minutes to go. This is still within GB's grasp for them to come back. They did it at the end of the second quarter and at the end of the third quarter. As we take a look at the amount of time spent on court, Ryley BATT and his personal low pointer, Beau Vernon, 30 minutes and 2 seconds. They have played every second of this bronze medal match. And surprise, surprise, Aaron Phipps having a change of wheel. It's only meant to take a minute, and they seem to be taking a little bit of time over it, particularly since Johnny COGGAN also had some repairs on his strapping. Phipps not quite good to go yet. I'm surprised that Ryley BATT isn't complaining about the time taken, but he's got his game face on here. Great outlet for Vernon.
Ryley BATT looks to head away, but now it's a chair issue for Chris Bond. So the wear and tear of a grueling 5 days competition coming to pass with the machinery bearing the brunt of it. The athletes are all right, aren't they?
And the mechanics as well. So Blair Thompson, he deserves a medal as well. So it makes it a little bit of an awkward corner inbound that Bond has to do. So BATT's going to need to get himself free.
Jack Smith gets an arm in, and that's the turnover that GB were craving. Phipps to Robinson, game on.
It's a one-point game. That was the turnover they needed. Jack Smith again, brilliant play. All of a sudden, it's an awkward inbound, and it's Bond taking it again.
Vernon juggles, Bond collects, and he manages miraculously to shove it to BATT.
The last minute-itis has come early. It's come with 2 minutes to go.
Well, I just wonder if those 2 back-to-back mechanical timeouts just led to a lapse of concentration in the Australians. They were laser-focused. But now, it is GB who have that bit of wind in their sails. Phipps does look to go it alone, but he doesn't quite get there because BATT shuts him off.
GB still have a timeout they can take if they need to.
Oh my goodness.
It's a huge turnover. Robinson couldn't corral it, and it's still a 2-point lead for Australia, and they now have possession. I think that says it all. That was in GB's grasp there. They could have got it back to within 1 point, and the nerves from Australia. So, again, it's a corner inbound. Australia have made substitutions. On come SABLJAK and Edmondson. Safe pairs of hands. They want mid-pointers in there, so they've got 3 people with good handling skills and good trunk functions to try to see out the remainder of this match.
They need to get out of their half, first and foremost. BATT arrives, and he lurches across just before the 27 mark ticks on.
No timeouts for them, of course.
Edmondson, the New South Wales Gladiator connection.
1 score now will do it for Australia.
Edmondson arrives, and he makes it count.
That was so close. Were his wheels over the line before he got it? Kristin Hempfling perfectly positioned and said no, and it's a 3-point gap. The Australian fans in the crowd going wild. 2 points clear, 28.4 seconds to go. Plenty of ball handlers on the court. BATT needs to get it over the halfway line, and he does so.
The home straight for the Steelers. The friends, the family, the die-hard Australian fans allow them to believe. They allow themselves to celebrate. GB cruise home for 1 last try, but it will only be in consolation.
Well, GB not going to give up yet. There's going to be pressure on the inbound. And now it's done.
Australia have done it. It is a bronze burnished climax to Ryley BATT's fated Paralympic story. Tears of joy for the Steelers fans. It isn't steel, it's bronze for the Australian wheelchair rugby team.
I don't know whether the member of the entourage there will be able to get the ball out of the venue, because you have your bags checked when you leave, but hopefully they'll be allowed to take that souvenir with them. Australia win the bronze medal match 50-48, a match that was in doubt right up until a minute from the end.
A great outpouring of emotion from the fans, the players who have been on an incredible journey all together. They've taken us with them. And Chris Bond, the captain, has led Australia to a first Paralympic medal in 2 attempts. It was 4th place for Australia in Tokyo. It's the same agonising position for Great Britain, who came in as Paralympic champions after their heroics in Japan.
The looks on the faces of the Steelers say it all. Big hug there for James McQUILLAN, who only made his debut a couple of years ago. Emilie Miller brought back into the squad just recently. Basketball Paralympian now, a bronze medalist in wheelchair rugby is Ella SABLJAK. And how wonderful it is for the fans that have travelled halfway across the world, and for Ryley BATT making his Paralympic bow as they get into the huddle.
Well, they've exacted a bit of revenge for the defeat inflicted upon GB in the group stage, and they've exacted it at the most exacting time with a medal on the line. And whilst disappointment probably lies somewhere in the backs of their minds from not being in the gold medal match, they have rallied and they have risen, and they put in a bronze medal winning performance here at Paris 2024.
Chris Bond, what a captain's knock from him. And then the two high-profile high pointers, BATT and Robinson, in an embrace right at the end of the match. BATT and Bond, likely the last time that they will play together.
In excess of 500 appearances for the Steelers between those two legends. And I do mean legends of wheelchair rugby, particularly in Australian colours. And a fitting send-off for Ryley BATT. It may not be the gold that he would have dreamed of, but another medal to hang in the cabinet.
Team GB pushed them all the way. Australia came out all guns blazing at the start of the 4th quarter and forced turnovers. They got themselves 3 points clear, but Team GB never backed down, forcing a turnover late on, sowing the seeds of doubt and nerves into the minds and the hearts of the Steelers. It was an incredibly nervous last minute or two for Australia, so full credit to Team GB. For the pressure they put them under, they made Australia really work for that bronze medal.
The next generation watching on. That's a beautiful sight with the family.
James McQUILLAN, and I do believe that was his daughter Lily.
And Ella SABLJAK. Second time as a Paralympian, a first as a wheelchair rugby player. She picked up a 9th place finish in Tokyo as a basketballer. She now leaves Paris with a medal. What about this guy, Drew? What about this man who is bowing out? Not Bondi, who's been alongside him all this time, but Ryley BATT, who had a profound impact on those game statistics, on the statistics that have ultimately led to this Australian triumph. The turnovers against GB proving terminal despite their 4 steals. Penalties also going against the defending champions. Australia victorious, and confirmation in the bracket of that victory, of that bronze medal. They have defeated Great Britain, and it just remains the gold medal to settle between Japan and the United States of America. A bit of clarity in the Paralympic World Rankings is clear after this session. Denmark claiming 7th over Germany in 8th, and Australia with bronze. Great Britain finished 4th. Enthralling and exhilarating session at the Champ de Mars at Paris 2024 comes to a conclusion with a bit more clarity as to the global order in wheelchair rugby. Denmark have claimed 7th place with victory over their European counterparts, Germany, in the classification match, whilst for Australia, they are the bronze medalists. They've defeated Great Britain, who will finish in Paris in 4th. We continue to be exhilarated by the sport of wheelchair rugby at the Champ de Mars at Paris 2024, day 5 of the Paralympic Games.